Yeah, I'm talking about Sonic Generations today. And can you tell that I'm missing the Xbox 360 version? Because, what the is this? My Xbox 360 copy is elsewhere. But believe me, we're mainly going to be talking about the Xbox 360 and PS3 versions today because, wow. Like, this is one of the best Sonic games. Sonic Generations is genuinely, like, one of the highest quality Sonic the Hedgehog experiences out there. At least of the 2010s. It's not perfect, but damn, is it like one of the coolest anniversary titles of any franchise in any medium. The concept of it is just so fantastic. It's like, hey, let's take the level themes from every major Sonic release and just create an entire game out of new levels based around those level themes. So hey, here's Green Hill Zone again, but it's a brand new level design. And on top of that, hey, let's have 2D classic Sonic play the first act, and then 3D modern Sonic play the second act. Like, everything about Sonic Generations was just brilliant. And on top of that, the soundtrack was one of the greatest out there. The visuals were phenomenal. Generations is genuinely one of the best Sonic games. I love this game to death. And ever since its release in 2011, I found it to be a fantastic blueprint for the future of the Sonic franchise. And they took all the wrong damn lessons from that. Today, I just kind of want to talk about Sonic post-Generations. Everything Sonic after the release of Sonic Generations. Because like I said, when that game released, it felt like there was so much momentum behind Sonic at the time, We just got Sonic Colors on the Wii in 2010, and that was seen as, wow, this is a great modern Sonic title. And then you had Sonic 4 Episode 1 in 2010 too. Yikes. But at the time, a lot of reviewers commended that game. They were like, wow, Sonic's back. But I feel like it's kind of weird, you kind of see this weird thing with like, gaming journalism back then where they would constantly criticize Sonic for a lot of the reasons why fans really loved Sonic, and Sega would listen to them, and that's how we kind of got into like this really, really generic funk with the franchise for a bit there. I felt like a lot of journalists would make fun of fans of the series for being too picky, when a lot of it like was genuine complaints. Like, yeah, like Sonic fans can be just like, buddy, what's your problem? But a lot of fans hated the fact that the physics of Sonic 4 weren't the same as the Genesis titles. And they weren't only not the same as the Genesis titles, they weren't fucking good. A lot of journalists were like, wow, picky bitches here, huh? It's a different game. Of course it'll have different physics. When, you look at Sonic 4 and that is a genuine huge complaint with that game. The physics are bad. However, at the time, it felt like, wow, Sonic is back. Sonic 4! It was just exciting, that was during like a time of retro reboots, you have like Mega Man 9 and 10, Xbox Live Arcade, PlayStation Network, WiiWare. It was just an exciting time to just download these classic franchises with brand new entries like the Castlevania, the Adventure Rebirth game, Contra Rebirth, Gradius Rebirth. So to have a 2D Sonic game on consoles and it's downloadable and like, oh man, it's a little cheaper and it's like, oh, I can compare my high scores to others. All this Xbox Live jargon. It was a cool time. There was something special about that era because like, it just kind of felt like the arcades and that classic era of gaming was back, but in a fresh new way. And then in addition, in 2010, you had a couple of other things like Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. There was the Sonic Classic Collection on DS. There was just a bunch of good quality Sonic stuff. And you take that momentum and you head into 2011 with a phenomenal Sonic game, a phenomenal anniversary title. I love Sonic Generations. Not the 3DS version, though. Yeah, this one's just weird, and it's just a huge missed opportunity. Modern Sonic in this game is 2D only. He has, like, the boost mechanic and whatnot, so that's kind of his only major difference, and he has the homing attack, too, but classic Sonic gets the homing attack later on in the game anyway, so it's like, it just feels pointless. It's just, I don't even know what the hell the point of this game is. It feels really rushed. It's a huge vat of missed potential because you think, oh man, Sonic Generations on 3DS can cover Sonic's handheld origins. And to an extent it does, but it doesn't go far enough with it. They pretty much just cover like the Sonic Rush series and that's it. When like you could have done like the Game Gear titles, Sonic Advance, all this stuff. Sonic Rivals, who the hell cares? But now, in the end, this is a very cobbled together last minute handheld rendition of Sonic Generations. I wouldn't say it's bad, but you can just see the potential with this game and just didn't even get close to it. Yeah, so this, who the hell cares? But what the hell I did care about was the future of Sonic on consoles. Sonic Generations was fantastic. And I just thought, hey, imagine a brand new Sonic game that just plays like Generations. It's just modern Sonic gameplay from Sonic Generations with brand new level themes, all this stuff. It felt like Sonic Team had finally figured out what to do with Sonic. They did not. Very shortly after Sonic Generations released, trailers for Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 started to pop up. So yeah, that's still a thing. Took a damn year and a half to get the second episode out, which is ridiculous. Took way too long on that. You know, the whole point of like episodic content like this is that it comes out fairly frequently. You look at like the Telltale game series and it's just like, yeah, like every month or every couple of months, you'd get another episode and then you'd have the complete package within that year. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 took way too long to come out. And it wasn't really episodic. It was just an excuse to make just small games that you didn't have to worry about having like a full level lineup. You could be like, oh, let's just have 4 levels in this. Who the hell cares? We'll be like, we'll finish it later. And they sure did with Sonic 4 Episode 2. This is definitely not Episode 2. This is just a flat out different fucking game. It plays a bit differently. It looks different. I mean, like, it has completely new mechanics. So it's like, this isn't like the second half of Sonic 4. This is just the sequel to Sonic 4. And yeah, you know, I will say this is definitely an improvement to Episode 1. It looks a hell of a lot better. Episode 1 had this funky ass, like, Donkey Kong Country ass looking aesthetic where everything looked like it was made out of like plastic. Like the environments look pre-rendered and just bad. And of course later down the line it's obvious why, because Sonic 4 was originally meant to just be like just a mobile game, just a mobile ass game for iPhones where it's like, hey, it's a 2D Sonic game made for iPhones. And then Sega looked at that and said, yeah, let's just make that Sonic 4 and put it on Xbox Live Arcade. People will love it. Which that's also why Sonic 4 Episodes 1 and 2 were always available on mobile devices. I always found that crazy that it's like, oh man, Sonic 4 is on iPhone and it runs and looks fairly competently. Yeah, that's because it was always meant for iPhone. Sonic 4 Episode 2, I feel like, was at least more designed for the home consoles. They skipped out on WiiWare this time, so Sonic 4 Episode 1 was on WiiWare, and this one just straight up wasn't. And maybe it's because of that, like, this game looks a hell of a lot better. I love the color in this game, like, it just pops. I love the character models, like, everything just looks pretty damn good in Episode 2. That doesn't mean I want to play it at all. This game is just a slog to get through. I think it's a bit much to consider the Sonic 4 episodes to be like bad, abhorrent games. They're just mediocre as hell, man. And especially after Sonic 4 Episode 1 and Sonic Generations with classic Sonic in that game, this one just felt like, what is the point of this? Like, there's really no demand for this because we just got a pretty competent classic Sonic experience in Sonic Generations. Yeah, the physics weren't the same as the Genesis games, but they weren't bad. It was just different. The physics in the Sonic 4 games are bad. Episode 2 may be a bit better, but in the end, like, this style of 2D Sonic just isn't very good. These games are so reliant on Sonic's homing attack that it just kind of ruins the level design for the most part. It just makes everything really boring. There's no cool power-ups or secrets to find. The level themes are always just recycled from previous games. So this just doesn't really feel like an actual Sonic 4. You know, Sonic 4 Episode 1 was meant to mimic Sonic 1. Episode 2 was meant to mimic Sonic 2. Like, what are we doing here, man? They also did a thing where if you had Episode 1 and Episode 2, you unlocked Episode Metal, which just had you replaying Sonic 4 Episode 1 with Metal Sonic. That's it. I wanted to advertise it as if it's like lock-on technology, like with Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles. And hey, at the very least, it did mean we did get a third episode in the Sonic 4 series. Because yeah, after this, that was it for Sonic 4. They never made the Episode 3 that would include Knuckles and all that nonsense. In the end, I do have like some nostalgia for Sonic 4 because it does bring me back to that fun era of the 7th generation that was all about like just the Xbox Live Arcade stuff. I loved that stuff, and I loved how frequent all these old games were coming back, all these cool new games. Just, it was so much fun. Sonic 4 Episode 1 reminds me of that, and Sonic 4 Episode 2 reminds me of kind of the death of that era. Because by the time that game came out in like spring of 2012, that stuff just wasn't nearly as exciting. And especially in the Sonic franchise, it kind of felt like something where it's like we were regressing from Sonic Generations. You had Sonic Generations with classic Sonic, and that was fantastic. And then you go to Sonic 4 Episode 2, and it just kind of feels like, what's the point of this, man? Well, hey, there's at least a point to this one right here. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. This released in late 2012. It was a Wii U launch title, and it launched on pretty much all the other major consoles at the time. 360, PS3, there's 3DS and Vita versions. And yeah, the All-Stars Racing games are always like really high quality. This is about as close to Mario Kart as you can get without being Mario Kart, but as fun and as decent as these games are, this is the problem with mascot racing games like this. It doesn't matter how good they can get, they're never Mario Kart. It feels like everything they do, it's just very much in the shadow of Mario Kart. Like all the items you get in this game, it's pretty much like you get an item and you say, okay, what does this item do? Oh, they're like green shells. Oh, this is like a mushroom. Like it's always living in Mario Kart shadow. And an element of this one that always felt like, buddy, what's going on is how, yeah, it's transformed, you know? You turn into boats, you turn into a plane, which is very similar to like the gimmick with Mario Kart 7. Oh yeah, you can go underwater. Oh, you can glide. Of course, you know, it's much different in this game. You know, gliding is different from flying. You know, being a boat is different from just fucking sinking. But man, this is just a quality racing game. You know, I think things were still looking up for Sonic. Everything was looking good. I can't wait for the next main series title. Sonic Lost World. This was announced as a part of an agreement between Nintendo and Sega to create Nintendo-exclusive Sonic games. I think both saw the success of Sonic Colors in 2010. That was a Wii exclusive, so, you know, everything just seemed to make sense here. You know, the Wii U is Nintendo's latest home console. They're trying to drum up some excitement for it. They know, hey, our fans love Sonic games. Sonic fans tolerate Nintendo. Let's enter an agreement where 3 Sonic games will be exclusive to the Wii U and maybe the 3DS as well. So what was included a part of that agreement? Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games. That is the stupidest. Why was that a part of the agreement? Nintendo, you buffoons, that was gonna be exclusive regardless to your consoles. Dumb as hell, but hey, at least we got the next main series Sonic game as a Wii U exclusive. And there's a lot of excitement surrounding this one, you know, when trailers for Sonic Lost World were popping up and gameplay was being shown, this looked like an incredibly high quality game. However, when this first got revealed, I was kind of underwhelmed, to be honest. And it wasn't for any reason other than the fact that they went for a much simpler art style with this game, which just wasn't as impressive as like Sonic Generations to me. Nowadays, you know, I can look at this game and be like, yeah, it runs buttery smooth. This is a very stable Sonic game compared to Generations, which, you know, can stutter a little bit. And especially compared to Sonic Unleashed. Oh my god, that game is a slideshow sometimes on 360. But it felt like they were going for a much more abstract style with Lost World. I mean, even look at just the logo, the main enemy designs. This was a different style for Sonic. So that was definitely pretty interesting. And the game itself, I think that is the best thing you can say about it. It's interesting. Sonic Lost World has some good ideas, but they pretty much took like a winning formula with Sonic Generations and Colors and the daytime stages from Unleashed, and they just threw it out the window. They're like, let's do something completely different with Sonic. This is such a weird game because it keeps like half of the ideas from, let's say, Sonic Colors. Even like the power-ups from that game, the Wisps, like they're back. The general story beats, like Lost World feels like it's a follow-up to Sonic Colors and everything but the gameplay. Like it has this overly childish mentality, and like with Sonic Colors, it was already kind of like, oh, this feels like it's Sonic's take on a general like Mario style game. They even have like the world map and levels sectioned off like it's New Super Mario Brothers or something. Then Sonic Lost World takes that and pushes it even further. Like you have very basic Mario-ass level themes for each of the worlds. Here's grass, here's desert, here's tropical. It's just Mario. And even the music has more of like a Mario flavor to it. It's not that it doesn't feel like Sonic music, but you can definitely sense the Mario inspiration in Sonic Lost World, especially considering, you know, hey, you're kind of moving around these areas, floating in space. Sometimes you're on spheres, very similar to Mario Galaxy. That's what Lost World was consistently compared to. But that's not what makes Lost World bad. You know, Lost World has some actually like pretty decent ideas. You look at something like Generations, and as good as that game is, like, it's a pretty short game, and they had to pad it out with a bunch of 2D segments. That was the big problem with that style of Sonic. Modern 3D Sonic goes so fast, you can't really create like a very long-lasting experience because he blasts through so much of the level so quickly that if you created like a 10-minute long modern Sonic boost stage, that would probably cost like $200 million. Like, that would be the longest damn level of all time, and you'd speed past like half of it in like 5 minutes. Those stages are so detailed and very well designed overall. Like, there's so many different paths that, hey, you know, like, it's not the most sustainable type of game to develop. So Lost World attempted to kind of slow Sonic down and go for this more exploratory style of Sonic game, where you were doing stuff like parkour, and you were doing all these different moves, like running on walls. It was kind of like, hey, let's kind of mess around with movement here. Let's kind of make it so then this is a game where you have more control over Sonic, and potentially something where, you know, you can explore the stages a little more than kind of like the amusement park rides, you know, blasting down hallways that you are in a game like Generations. It almost feels like they were fulfilling the concept of Sonic Extreme, that old canceled Sonic game on the Sega Saturn. You look at how that game looks and compare it to Lost World, and you know, you can see some similarities there. And definitely a similarity is that Sonic Extreme probably wasn't going to be that good, and Sonic Lost World isn't very good. It's okay at best, but like, yeah, man, Sonic Lost World is just kind of a mess of ideas. Feels like most of the stuff in this game is just them just throwing shit at the wall and just hoping something makes sense. And just, it's such an incoherent mess of a game. Some things are okay, and I think like the first area of the game, like, yeah, it's all right. On its best day, I wouldn't prefer this formula to like the boost formula present in Generations or the daytime stages in Unleashed, but it's okay. But then as you keep moving on, the game just starts to fall apart, man. And like, there's like a story cutscene after every single level, and it's just such a nothing story. These fucking characters, they're lame as hell. It was just like one of the lamest things to see them take like a tried and true formula. They did so well with the last Sonic game, and then they're going like, well, things need to change. And I understand things needed to change because the boost formula, as fun as that can be, like I said, it's not sustainable. There's only so much you can do with the level design there, whereas here, they slow them down a little bit and they kind of create more open level design to go through. I think that makes sense. Didn't make for a great game, but hey, you know, I understand why they did this. At the same time, I would have definitely preferred, like, another game like Generations. So after things didn't need to change, Sega thought, well, things need to change. Well, can you tell my copy of Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric is also missing right now? So around 2014, Sega announced plans for a new direction for Sonic. Sonic Boom! Pretty much just taking the Sonic franchise and westernizing it, which is kind of dumb considering even though Sonic was created in Japan, he was specifically designed to appeal to Western audiences. So what did they do to westernize him even further? They gave him a scarf. The redesigns of these characters definitely kind of took a bunch of people aback, specifically Knuckles here, because, you know, he's changed the most. All the other characters, that you know, they're pretty much the same. They just have extra accessories on, and Sonic is a little lankier and has, like, a bit more ruggedness to his quills, and has a scarf and athletic tape on. That's it. Knuckles got the biggest change here, and you know what? I'll say, like, I think it's fine. I think it makes sense for a redesign in this universe. He's a big dude. He's strong. So make him big, make him strong. You know, I think it makes sense. It is kind of a little jarring to go from, you know, that Knuckles to this Knuckles, but I think it makes sense. And Sega wanted to just kind of push forward with the Sonic franchise, just have this brand new lineup for it, you know, TV show, comics, toys, and video games. Yeah, I mean, like, the initial trailer for Sonic Boom looked pretty okay. The visuals actually looked quite excellent. And it just seemed like to be an interesting direction for the Sonic franchise. You got to play as all 4 of the unique Sonic characters. They all have unique moves. It almost seemed like, hey, here's something that isn't like the Sonic Adventure games, but it's kind of veering a little closer to that, which is something that fans have been wanting for years. So that was something. And then at E3 2014, a new trailer for Sonic Boom dropped, and it looked like way fucking worse. It's pretty obvious, especially now that, you know, we know the development of this whole thing, but Sonic Boom was not originally developed for the Wii U. It was not developed with Wii U in mind. It's the only Wii U game that uses the Cry engine, which wasn't meant to be used on Wii U, but they got it working on Wii U just for Sonic fucking Boom. And Sega rushed the development of this game. They forced them to hastily port the game to Wii U and get it out in time for the holiday season in 2014. And thus, we got the second coming of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, everybody. Yay! It's crazy we went through this again, especially after, like, hey, things were looking up for Sonic, and then we got a weird-ass title with Sonic Lost World, and then Sonic Boom, you know, we got these weird-ass looking characters now, and shitty games alongside them. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric is a kid's game. It is a licensed kids game. It is not meant to be anything more than the type of game that you'd get based on any other kid show at the time, and it's just kind of a shitty 3D platformer. That's all it is. It has a few things that resemble traditional 3D Sonic games. It has just a few ideas that I guess are like fine, but for the most part, it is just such a bland-ass game. When you compare it to like Sonic 06, I think Sonic 06 is better just because, like, hey, I mean, that game is like so bad it's good kind of shit. Sonic Boom has its moments of hilarity, but for the most part, it's just boring. I played Sonic 06 recently, and yeah, it wasn't good, but like, you could at least see what they were trying to go for there. Sonic Boom, even if it turned out like flawless, it would still be like a 6 out of 10 at best. Like, it's like, this is just kind of a generic kids game. But now, it's not only that, it's a generic kids game that sucks. It's glitchy as hell. It's unpolished as hell. It has some redeeming qualities. Like, I think sometimes the in-engine cutscenes are actually okay. Like they animate the characters fairly well. And then you see the immediate quality dip in like another cutscene where like characters are literally like fucking sock puppets. But yeah, I don't know what they were doing here. Obviously, they had to get everything out at the same time. It's kind of like why Pokemon games have been like really shoddy because, you know, oh, it all has to abide by a schedule. Oh, well, this has to come out because the anime has to come out and all this merchandise needs to come out alongside it. You know, it probably to a lesser extent, that's what Sonic Boom had to go through. Like, no matter what, these games had to release in November of 2014. And they just shouldn't have released at all, especially on Wii U. Like, Rise of Lyric, first up, what the fuck is that subtitle? Rise of Lyric, bro, like, within the first, like, 5 minutes of meeting him, he already rose. Like, talk about a game that peaked early, but on top of that, it's just, who's Lyric? I don't even think he's in the show Sonic Boom. Shattered Crystal is definitely better. It's still not great. It's kind of like a weird, like, Metroidvania kind of Sonic game. This one's more tedious than it is, like, horrible. It's still not that great. Sonic Boom as a franchise was really meant to bring Sonic back as a pop culture icon for kids everywhere. You know, Sonic still is, like, I think, like, everybody knows who Sonic is, and Sonic has so many fans, but Sonic Boom was meant to push the franchise even further. And because they didn't care about quality with these games, you know, Sonic Boom just didn't do anything. If anything, it really did tank the Sonic franchise. The show was okay, and you had a lot of extra toys and all of that, but yeah, I think Sonic Boom had potential. The problem is the quality of the games that released in 2014 really just threw that potential away. The show got like a second season and some more merchandise and all of that stuff, and it got a second game here, which we'll talk about in a second, but man, they just fucked it up. Jesus, yeah, 2014 to 2015, this was not a great era for Sonic. The Sonic franchise at this point in time was pretty much nothing but Sonic Boom. It was pretty much the only thing going on with Sonic. The only games that were really releasing were, you know, this, and a lot of mobile stuff. Sonic was mostly on mobile during these years. You know, the big release was Sonic Runners. You know, you always see all this stuff about how Sonic Dash is like the biggest Sonic game released ever. That was doing pretty well. I think it still is doing pretty well. There's like a lot of things where like Sonic Dash has had multiple spin-offs, like Sonic Dash 2, which is themed entirely around Sonic Boom. And then you have the Sonic Forces mobile game that released later, which is literally just Sonic fucking Dash again. But that was doing well. Unlike Sonic Runners, there was so much behind this game, you know? Like, Sonic Team was developing it, so it was like, wow, this is like the actual Sonic mobile game, because, you know, stuff like Sonic Jump and Sonic Dash weren't developed by Sonic Team. Sonic Runners was pretty much a 2D endless runner game. It was free to play, so it was just kind of meant to be continually played, and they had all these events with all these deep cut references to throughout the Sonic series, which was kind of rare at the time for the franchise. There were a bunch of things that were kind of all coming together at this moment that was making the series feel like it was in a pretty bleak spot. So, like I said, around the time of Sonic 4, Sonic Colors, all of that stuff, I feel like a lot of criticism was directed towards like, oh man, all this extra bullshit in my Sonic games, I want just Sonic. Like, all these people who weren't fans of Sonic to begin with were complaining about all the extra characters in Sonic and all this nonsense. Like, no, I want just regular, plain old, basic, vanilla-ass Sonic. And Sega listened, and they listened hard, because, like, a big selling point of the original Sonic 4 Episode 1 was the fact that you could only play as Sonic in that, or at least that's what they pushed. They were like, hey, we listened to you. Nobody gives a shit about all these extra characters. Like, bro, I don't care about the fucking B either, but, like, this is just boring now. You have main series games like Sonic Colors and Sonic Lost World that are so plain Jane, it just gets, it's so boring, man. But then you have Sonic Runners, which is just introducing all this junk that's from throughout the entire series. Stuff from Sonic Adventure, Adventure 2, Heroes, Unleashed, Sonic 06, just all this stuff that's like, hey, you may love those games, you may hate those games, but at the very least, that's kinda cool. And yeah, Sonic Runners was kinda cool. They shut it down. Yeah, Sonic Runners was not meant for this world. I played it like once or twice back in the day, and I thought it was okay, but, you know, it obviously didn't really grab me very much, and I think that was the big problem. You know, it obviously didn't grab a lot of people because they had to shut the entire game down. There is this game that replaced it by Gameloft. You know Gameloft. Gameloft is like knockoff Ubisoft for mobile devices. I remember seeing their logo all over these like mobile games I would download back in like 2009. You know, like I remember specifically the Avatar movie game for iPhone. That was a Gameloft joint, baby. I think they are related to Ubisoft in some ways. You know, hey, Gameloft games like the Asphalt series, Ubisoft did publish some of those games on consoles like Asphalt 3D, so I'm just kind of talking out of my ass right now. I can just look it up. What does Gameloft have to do with Ubisoft? It was founded by the co-founder of Ubisoft. Okay. Well, either way, they released Sonic Runners Adventure, which is pretty much the only way you can play Sonic Runners these days. It's pretty much an offline version of Sonic Runners, which, hey, I mean, that's pretty cool that they did do that, just to give you something now that Sonic Runners is unplayable. But yeah, when that was the biggest thing going on for Sonic in 2015, that's sad. Other than this game which got announced, Sonic Boom Fire and Ice. I remember the day this got announced, and it was just so puzzling. It's just like, why? Why are we doing this? This makes no sense. This franchise felt tainted at this point. But hey, the show was seemingly doing fairly well, and the show was actually pretty okay. In comparing Rise of Lyric to Shattered Crystal on the 3DS, Shattered Crystal definitely had more maybe potential. I mean, Shattered Crystal felt like it was the easiest to kind of clean up and kind of iterate on and make it better. Rise of Lyric, I think early on in its development, had more potential because they wanted to make something genuinely, like, impressive. But as the project stood on release, yeah, if you're gonna make a sequel to any of the Sonic Boom games, sure, make another one on the 3DS. But why? Why are you doing that? This makes no sense. Well, around this time was when the Sonic social media pages were starting to get a little funky. I specifically remember it might have been on like the Tumblr post or something that was announcing this game. Like in some of the tags or the hashtags, it said like, this will be better than the first game, we promise. And also around this time, you know, the social media pages were making fun of stuff like Sonic 06 and all the funny bullshit in the Sonic fandom. To be fair, a lot of social media pages started to do this around this time. Like, you know, the famous example is Wendy's. They'll tell you to go f yourself on Twitter. But I do think this was good overall for Sonic because, you know, during a dark time in the franchise, it was nice to kind of like kick back and kind of chuckle about a bit here. And it felt like things were definitely being course corrected because Sonic Boom Fire and Ice was originally slated for late 2015 and they delayed it a full year. They announced, hey, we need an extra year to polish things up. And, you know, that was surprising. Death, taxes, Sonic games not getting delayed. It was just an inevitability. Things were definitely moving in the right direction, I'd say. 2015 itself was still pretty damn boring, but 2016, that's when things got interesting. And not because of this game, nobody really gave a damn. This was the 25th anniversary of Sonic, so it's been 5 full years since Sonic Generations, and what have we accomplished? Regression. Yeah, I hate to say it, but it just felt like there really wasn't anything that great that released since Generations that wasn't like a spin-off title like Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. You had some cool things here and there, like, you know, hey, you might have kind of liked Sonic Lost World, but I feel like that's the most you can say about the game. You kind of liked it. There were some cool re-releases like Sonic 1 and 2 on mobile devices by Christian Whitehead. You know, he was a Sonic fan that ended up doing a lot of his own Sonic fan projects that were honestly outshining what Sega was doing, and they actually took him up on his offer to put Sonic 1 and 2 on mobile and kind of remaster them. Because we already had Sonic 1 and 2 on mobile. I remember playing these games on my iPod Touch and they functioned, but they weren't anything to write home about. Sega put a lot of their Genesis games out on mobile back in like 2009, and they all had that stock image of like the Genesis D-pad, and it was just all overlaid on the screen, and you know, the image was stretched to fit the widescreen display. There was also Sonic the Hedgehog on iPod. I played that one as well. Like, not iPod Touch, the iPod Classic. That doesn't even have anything to do with what we're talking about here. That just sucked. But the Christian Whitehead versions of these classic Sonic titles were honestly the definitive releases. True widescreen support and extra content added. When it came to Sonic 2, he actually went in and crafted this famous lost level, Hidden Palace Zone. So, you know, that's always been in the game's files, but it was always just this jittery, buggy mess. You know, you never got the full level until the Christian Whitehead release. The special stages in Sonic 2 were actually goddamn playable this time. These were amazing versions of these classic games. And in 2016, oh man, Sega held this big Sonic 25th anniversary party where they had a couple of announcements. For one, Sonic Boom Fire and Ice was still coming out, and the next major Sonic title was revealed. It was revealed that they let Christian Whitehead just have at it with all of his little Sonic fan buddies. Simon Tomley, who goes by Stealth, he did a lot of cool stuff. Like, he actually went and proved that Sonic 1 could run well on the Game Boy Advance. That completely shit on Sega's attempt with Sonic Genesis on the GBA. And you also have the musician T-Lopes, who did these amazing Sonic remixes. You pretty much have the A-team of Sonic fan game developers coming together to create an official classic Sonic game. The announcement of Sonic Mania was genuinely really damn cool. It was kind of like, oh man, this is what Sonic 4 was always meant to be. That's kind of like the sentiment that was surrounding Sonic Mania. Like, oh my god, this is like a true follow-up to Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles from 1994. I will say in the initial trailer, it was a little confusing how they only showed 2 stages, which was the brand new Studiopolis zone, which looked incredible. Oh my god, it just looked so cool. It was like this brand new theme. It looked like it would fit right in with any Sonic game. And then you have Green Hill Zone. Yes, this is meant to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Sonic, but at the same time, it looked pretty identical to regular-ass Green Hill Zone. So it kind of, I felt like there was a little bit of confusion as to, like, what is this game? Which was doubly felt when they announced the next major 3D Sonic game at the end of the event. This was codenamed Project Sonic 2017, and there were a couple big takeaways from this trailer. For one, they mentioned at the beginning that this is from the team that brought you Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations. They didn't give a f*** about Sonic Lost World. They wanted to showcase, hey, like, we're doing what you wanted right after Sonic Generations. This is the next Sonic game in the style of Sonic Generations and also Sonic Colors. And it almost felt like they took a lot of the criticism to heart for the recent mainline Sonic titles, like Lost World, where, you know, that felt a little too childish and kiddie. I think to an extent that's fine, but it got to a point of annoyance in Lost World. I know a lot of people dislike Colors for that reason. And I'm not gonna sit here and be like, Sonic Colors has the best script I've ever seen in my life. But it never annoyed me, it never bothered me. I'm like, this is fine. It felt like a Saturday morning cartoon. Sonic Lost World felt like a Saturday morning cartoon that you're forced to watch for 9 hours straight. But here we have this post-apocalyptic world, and Sonic looks fucking angry. And there he goes, he starts running, and it just kind of felt like, oh my god, this is a legitimately brand new modern Sonic game. It just kind of felt like, oh man, like they're putting their all behind this. And then classic Sonic appears, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? It didn't make any sense. Like, it's just like, is this Generations 2? What the hell is this character doing here again? You're doing Sonic Mania already, so that's kind of covering the whole classic Sonic nostalgia, and then you're just bringing him back again for like this modern Sonic, classic Sonic team up, and it just felt weird. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this makes sense for Sonic Generations. That was like the anniversary title for the 20th anniversary. And then you have this game that seems to be utilizing these brand new level designs and themes, and then you just have classic Sonic here again. Like, the fact that classic Sonic was in Generations wasn't what made Generations good. Sonic Generations wasn't good entirely just because of nostalgia. It was good because, like, these stages were fun to play through. And honestly, the worst stages were the classic Sonic stages. I think they're base level fine, they're good. But obviously, you know, classic Sonic in Generations compared to, you know, the upcoming Mania, which is being developed by fans who completely understand how Sonic physics should work, like, yeah, it just falls flat in comparison. And then you have classic Sonic in this brand new 2017 game, and it's kind of like, why? But this game was coming out in like a year and a half from the point of this live stream party and whatnot. There was still time for them to totally validate classic Sonic's inclusion in this brand new game. That's foreshadowing because they didn't. But hey, we had a couple of game releases in 2016, like Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. Okay, moving on. Sonic Boom Fire and Ice finally released in 2016. This is technically the 25th anniversary title, as it released for the 25th anniversary. Sonic Mania and Project Sonic 2017 were meant to celebrate the 25th anniversary. They just came out a year after the 25th anniversary. And this was technically probably meant to celebrate the 24th anniversary, considering it was meant to release in 2015. But it released in 2016. All right, let's go for it. This game is just okay. This is just an inoffensive licensed kids game. You know, the Sonic Boom games are always just meant to be like bland licensed kids stuff. And I just feel like it doesn't really work because, like, what are we doing here? It's kind of like the Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures games, which were also like, oh, here are video games based on a TV show based on video games. It's like, fine, you can do that, but these video games based on the shows have the general quality of video games based on kid shows. Maybe a little higher, but since these shows were based on video games, you can immediately compare these to actual Sonic games, and yeah, these just kind of feel like cheap imitations of the source material. But yeah, Fire and Ice, it's fine. Which really terrifies me if they didn't actually delay this game by a year. Like, if after getting delayed, it just kind of turned out to be okay, like, holy f***, what were we gonna get in 2015? But yeah, that's Sonic Boom Fire and Ice, and with this game is pretty much the end of the Sonic Boom franchise. The TV show still ran for another year. It ended in like late 2017, but even then, like, by this point, they were kind of burning the episodes off on like Boomerang. So the show initially ran on Cartoon Network at like ass crack in the morning, like 6 a.m. or something. Already wasn't great, but then you push it over to like a channel that like 90% of people don't even have on their cable subscription. And even then, to me, back in the mid-2000s, Boomerang was where you watched all these classic cartoons from Warner Brothers. So you had like Looney Tunes and like Tom and Jerry and like all the Hanna-Barbera crap. So who the hell was going to Boomerang for fucking Sonic Boom, man? So with that, I'd say the Sonic Boom franchise was kind of a failed experiment. You definitely had potential here, but I think it was just tainted by the horrible quality of the video games. The show itself wasn't bad, and I think if they could have kept it going for another season or two, they could have made it that much better. But alas, we were kind of getting back to basics with Sonic. Hell yeah! Sonic Mania! Feels like I'm saying one of the least interesting things of all time when I say Sonic Mania is really, really good, because, yeah, Sonic Mania is really, really good. But I mean, why wouldn't it be? You get some of the most passionate people on the planet together, some of the most talented game developers who just love Sonic and just put them together and have them create just this love letter to the classic series. And just the build up to release was just so entertaining. All the trailers they put out, all the promotional material, like every time I saw this game, it just looked better and better. But I wouldn't say it's perfect. Sonic Mania does have like the majority of its stages taken from previous Sonic games, which was pretty much a mandate from Sonic Team. You can make any excuse in the world for that, but I think that was just an incredibly lame limitation to put the developers on. But my god, they do make the most out of all these level themes they had to reuse from previous games like Chemical Plant Zone, Oil Ocean Zone, Lava Reef Zone. They make the most out of these things. But the new stages are so good, it's just like, why do I gotta play through Green Hill Zone again, man? I think it just kind of felt like, okay, like, you know, the last really good Sonic game was Sonic Generations, and the next really good Sonic game, 6 years later, was another game just meant to kind of like cash in on that Sonic nostalgia. Kind of go like, oh, remember classic Sonic? Remember these classic Sonic stages? You know, it's kind of a little lame, especially considering a big problem with Sonic games, especially in this era, is the fact that they consistently keep reusing the same locations, like Green Hill Zone, Chemical Plant Zone. And we're about to see with the other 2017 Sonic title, they reuse those goddamn level themes again for that game too. And as good of a game as Sonic Mania was and is, there's this feeling here that, like, okay, Sonic is back, but is he really? Considering, like, oh man, the best Sonic game to possibly ever release was made by fans, even though, hey, it was funded by Sega, it was published by Sega. Sega made this game alongside them. You know, there's this feeling that it's just like, okay, yeah, Sonic Mania, yeah, you're an official Sonic game, yeah, you're great and everything, but Sega didn't really make you, buddy. So, like, how much can you say Sonic is really back? In the end, I don't really give a damn, because this game is absolutely fantastic. There's very little I have a problem with it outside of the overused old school level themes. And even then, like, I'm like, I think the developers really did make the most out of that limitation. Back when it was coming out, I didn't do a ton of like pre-ordering or anything for games, especially digital titles. But Sonic Mania was one I preloaded on my system. I couldn't wait to play that on my PS4 at midnight when it unlocked. And I remember beforehand, I was doing some sneaky little looking at leaks and whatnot, because I was genuinely really interested to see like what was going on in this game. And yeah, I saw stuff like the Puyo Puyo boss battle, like that was really cool. And just playing through this game, like, oh my god, like I just had the biggest smile on my face. Considering the fact that, like, yeah, I grew up with the classic Sonic titles. I grew up with them on the Genesis and in Sonic Mega Collection. If I missed any portion of the Sonic franchise, it was kind of the portion that most people my age grew up with the most, which was kind of that early 3D adventure era. But yeah, man, just what a damn good game. I love Sonic Mania. This is definitely in the top 5 Sonic games, possibly even the best Sonic game, to be perfectly honest. It definitely rivals the best of the classic games. I do think it's probably the best flowing classic game. It's the best feeling classic game, you know, because it had decades between the release of Sonic 3 and Knuckles and this. You know, technology has evolved to the point that, like, yeah, like, oh man, the game's in widescreen and it runs beautifully smooth, all this stuff. Like, I feel like a lot of the things that make Sonic Mania so good were kind of a part of just the fact that, yeah, it did release in 2017. You know, that's something that the classic games can't necessarily compete with as much. But Sonic Mania isn't as, like, in quotes, fresh. It isn't very original, you know? Like, it isn't really, like, its own entry in the franchise as much as Sonic 2 was. You know, the intro to the game is ripped directly from Sonic 3. Most of its ideas are ripped from older Sonic games, but you know what? It just makes for one of the best goddamn mixtapes I've ever played in my life. This makes for one of the worst. Sonic Forces, what Project Sonic 2017 became. This is one of the most deflating experiences, ever. Just nothing about this game came together at all, and it feels like they celebrated the fact that this game wasn't a buggy, broken mess above everything else. So this is a return to the boost formula that was last shown in Sonic Generations. And it kind of felt like they took all the wrong things from Sonic Generations to make a new game out of. It's like, yeah, technically this is what a lot of us wanted, you know, like, hey, make Sonic Generations again, but with brand new stages. Kind of. Because even then, they didn't really do that. Most of the stages in this game are based on older Sonic themes. You know, you have Green Hill Zone, Chemical Plant, Metropolis. Yeah, they look different, but it's also like, I don't know, man. Everything in this game, like I said, feels incredibly disconnected. Classic Sonic is back for no reason at all. They even do like this weird tie-in with him, like, oh, this is the classic Sonic from Sonic Mania, because at the end of Sonic Mania, he goes through a portal, and then he goes through that same portal in Sonic Forces. And then he does nothing in this game. He does absolutely nothing in this game. The bigger element is the fact that you have like create a character that pretty much is just, he just plays like modern Sonic, but he just has like Wisp power-ups, you know, Wisp weapons, Wisp-ons. The story and the vibes are dumb as hell, man. I mean, like, they go for a darker turn, like, oh my god, Eggman won. But they don't do anything with that. Like, all of these stages that are meant to represent, oh man, look at this, Eggman genuinely took over the world. Like, okay, so what do? They put a bunch of sand in Green Hill Zone. Who the hell cares? It doesn't look that much different from regular Green Hill Zone, buddy. Like, have the background show off this deep and dark sky, this cloudy musk or something. I don't know. And the custom character is just kind of just thrown in there. It's just meant to be like, it's like your self-insert, which is dumb. You know what I thought? I thought they should have done something like this motherfucker, like Infinite, when they revealed this guy. I don't give a shit, but still. I thought an interesting direction to take the story, in quotes like story. I really don't care about Sonic stories, but I'm like, hey, what if Eggman has like this thing or something that allows him to create a being or something. I don't know. So he creates Infinite. You know, hey, infinite possibilities. This is Eggman's custom character. So Sonic's team busts into his lab and they're like, well, let's create our own hero to combat Infinite. And that's where you create this guy. Now, instead in the story, they're like, we have a new rookie on the team. This fucking dope. And like, they try to make things like very dark, but at the same time, no. Like it feels like, you know, like if you're gonna go dark, go all the way, like mean it, like believe in it. And then they say stuff like, oh my god, Sonic's been tortured by Eggman for months. And like, no, he wasn't. Like, he doesn't look any worse. Like, what were they doing to him, man? And I gotta be honest, like, Sonic Force's story isn't even like so bad it's good kind of stuff. Like, at least with like other Sonic games, like let's say, you know, basic stuff like Sonic 06, Sonic Boom, haha. Like some of those you can actually like watch and just kind of laugh at how like dumb some of it is. You know, Sonic 06 is the king of that. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric has a couple things like that here and there. Sonic Forces has like a few lines of dialogue that are just so absurd that it's kind of funny, but at this point, like, you know, it's not funny anymore because everybody's made jokes about them. So it's like, this game isn't even like, oh, it's so bad, it's good. And like I said, it's not a buggy game, really, but like, it's not fun at all. Classic Sonic has bad physics. His stages are not good, and he does not feel good to control. Again, you can make do with it. It's not like, oh my god, this is the worst thing. I hate how this controls. It's just, it's not fun to control. He doesn't have good momentum and good physics like he does in Sonic Mania. And on top of that, he's pointless in the game. There's no point to him being here. Modern Sonic stages are basically just straight lines. There's barely anything you have to do in them. The level design is not interesting in the slightest. It's so damn basic and boring and just nothing to these stages, and they are ridiculously short. And the same can be said about the create a character stages. They just have more enemies and obstacles in the way where you can take advantage of your weapon. And throughout the whole game, it doesn't feel like you're progressing through anything. There's only like 5 level themes in the whole game, but it feels like they kind of take all the level themes, made a bunch of stages for like, okay, here's the modern Sonic Green Hill Zone, here's the classic Sonic Green Hill Zone, here's the create a character Green Hill Zone. And, you know, they threw it in a blender and just shuffled all the stages up, and then they just tried to tie all of these stages together with just a stupid-ass story. It feels like they shuffled up all the stages, and then they tried to make sense of it all. Like, oh man, Eggman's troops have been spotted at Chemical Plant. Oh man, now Eggman's troops have been spotted at Green Hill Zone, so we gotta go there. Oh man, Metropolis, we better go there. This game just doesn't have any value to me. This felt very much cobbled together, and it felt like they prioritized it being a functioning game because, hey, like the worst thing you could say about Sonic Boom was the fact that it was a buggy mess. The worst thing you could say about Sonic 06 was that it was a buggy mess, and Sonic Forces is not a buggy mess, but it is bland as all hell. It feels like it has no direction. The level design is bland and boring as sin, and it just felt like Sega was listening to all the wrong things as to like, oh, this is what we liked from Sonic Generations. Wasn't the fact that classic Sonic was just there. It was the fact that the modern Sonic stages were really fun. It felt like they really cared about all of the levels. Classic Sonic might not have been the same as the Genesis titles, but he was still pretty good. And they just didn't care with this game. They just cobbled it together. So right when Sonic hit a high with Sonic Mania, Sonic Forces kind of just leveled it out. I wouldn't say this severely hurt the franchise, but as time has gone on, I think people have become less and less accepting of this game. It's not as inherently bad as Sonic 06, but at least with Sonic 06, you could see a vision with that. Sonic Forces, it feels like the vision began and stopped at the pitch, and then they just didn't care after that. Okay, well, that was Sonic Team's game. Sonic Forces, I think, is like a 5 out of 10. Sonic Forces is the worst of the Boost games, so that's Sonic Unleashed, Sonic Colors, Sonic Generations, and Forces. And it just felt like they didn't care. They kind of cared, but they didn't at the same time. So what else to do in 2018 than to just double down on what worked? They did a physical release of Sonic Mania, Sonic Mania Plus. And I think it's great that this game actually got a physical release. You know, that was a big problem with the original, the fact that it was digital only. The thing with Sonic Mania Plus is I really wish there was more to it than there really is. The plus aspect of Sonic Mania Plus is pretty minimal overall. They have a new Encore mode, which is just like a new mode to kind of play like a slightly remixed version of the initial campaign. They have a couple different mechanics thrown in there, like a character switching mechanic and a different bonus stage, and 2 new playable characters, which is Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel, who are Sonic characters that really haven't been seen since like the early 90s. Like, Ray the Flying Squirrel was only in Sega Sonic the Hedgehog in arcades, and Mighty the Armadillo was last in like Knuckles Chaotix. So yeah, I definitely think it's pretty damn cool that they brought back like 2 really obscure characters in a playable way for Sonic Mania Plus. Like, that's really, really great. They also included like a 4-player mode for like the competition co-op stuff on Sonic, which is pretty much the same as like it's always been since like Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. But other than that, the plus element of Sonic Mania Plus is really not that prevalent. This is pretty much just an excuse to put out Sonic Mania at retail and also just include a couple extra things. Like, I think this is cool. I like that they put this out at retail. They do the dumb thing though, where they have this cool art book, but it just has to be this big, so you have to just kind of sloppily put it in with the slipcover instead of like, why, you know, like, hey, why can't you just have it fit in here? Holy shit. 2018 felt like it was a bit of cleanup year after Sonic Forces. They funded a bunch of new shorts based on Sonic Mania in the same style of the opening cutscene for Sonic Mania and the trailers for Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania Adventures on YouTube, which that has like a crazy amount of views. I think pretty much any time that you have like a decent chunk of like original animation on YouTube starring like a character like Sonic, like it's probably gonna do pretty well, especially on like YouTube Kids or something. But yeah, that was pretty cool. And they also announced a brand new racing game, which would then release in early 2019. It was actually meant to release in late 2018, but it got delayed again. So Sega's starting to learn some things here. So in spring of 2019, we got Team Sonic Racing. Who gives a I feel bad about this one because, you know, I mean, like, this is a fine game, but, like, compared to what preceded it, it is just so damn underwhelming. That is the best way to describe this game. It is not bad by any means. It is underwhelming as hell. The Sonic and Sega All-Stars games were really cool, especially considering like the huge character roster, all the cool tracks based on all different kinds of Sega properties. Of course, you leaned heavily into Sonic, you know, of course you do, but at the end of the day, they were still really damn cool, and Transformed took the original game and just pushed it that much further with the concept of, hey, you're a plane, you know, it made the tracks really dynamic. So you take everything Transformed was, and you take away all the different characters, you take away the interesting tracks, and you just whittle it down to just Sonic. No cool plane stuff, no cool boat stuff, it's just racing now, and it's just Sonic characters. And even then, it's not even like interesting Sonic characters. It's kind of the bare minimum of what you'd expect in this game. Zavok. Sega was trying to push a Zavok narrative at this time. He was heavily featured in Sonic Forces as like one of Sonic's iconic enemies, and then he came back in this game. It's kind of like on Team Eggman or whatever. You know, the entire game is based around teams. So, you know, they pick characters based on sets of 3. So you have Team Sonic, you know, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, you know, so on and so on, because they're really pushing this whole team mechanic in the game. You know, you're not just racing by yourself, you know, you're racing with a team, and you don't have to pick a team based on just this set of 3. You can mix and match however you want. But I think it's a cool idea to kind of set this apart from the other kart racers, especially at the time. I mean, Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled came out around the exact same time as this game. Which is probably why they called it Team Sonic Racing instead of Sonic Team Racing. Also, the fact that Sonic Team is the development studio for most Sonic titles, and they did not develop this game. I know Team Sonic is a term used consistently in the franchise. I still think this title is always a little awkward to say. You know what else is weird about this title? They use the R from Sonic R. Why? Making it seem like this has some kind of connection to that game. Outside of it's a racing game, there is none. All right, but I actually sat down and played through this game, and I do think it's a quality time, but man, there is just no reason to play this. I gotta be completely honest. I do know a lot of people at the time of its release were really disappointed by the online support and the online community surrounding this game. It was pretty much dead within the first week. They just didn't care to support this game. They didn't update it much for a game that is entirely based around, hey, squatting up with 2 of your friends to compete in a team. You'd expect them to support the game's online community a lot more. Now, they pretty much just put this game out and that was it. And just comparing this to the other Sonic racing games done by this developer, Sumo Digital, I mean, this is the worst one. I mean, it's the most modern, so it runs great and it looks fine, all of that stuff. It's a fine game, but man, just looking at the menu, like there's nothing to do in this game, man. After playing through a bit of the story mode, hopping online for a bit, and finding one person to play with, I was like, yeah, I got the Team Sonic Racing experience. It's okay. But that's all this game was. It was okay. Moving on. Oh, it was kind of hard to move on considering there really wasn't much going on for Sonic for another year and a half or so. I mean, you had Mario and Sonic at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. That was something. But in terms of core Sonic nonsense, the main thing that happened was in early 2020, we got the Sonic movie. Aha! Didn't expect I'd have one of these, did ya? Yeah, to be fair, out of anything possible I could have pulled out here, this was fairly likely. The Sonic movie. Now, it's kind of easy to forget at this point how much controversy surrounded this thing before it actually released. Which is weird to say because, like, the big thing about this movie when, like, the poster was initially revealed in late 2018 and then the trailer dropped in, like, springtime of 2019 was the design of Sonic and how fucking disgusting it was. Just felt like a huge miscalculation, as if they had to make Sonic look realistic to make the movie work. And it's just like, dude, it's a blue hedgehog. You can give him kind of cartoony eyes. It's not gonna look out of place. I think it was really something special that they actually listened to feedback and they went back and fixed the design. And yeah, his design looks great in this movie. And the movie overall, it's fine. And I think with subsequent movies, what they do in the first one here is a lot more commendable. You know, they try to make the Sonic lore and franchise make sense in like a, in quotes, grounded way. And this first one is a little lighter when it comes to, you know, being, you know, based on Sonic. You know, it's pretty much like, yep, here's Sonic. That's what makes it Sonic. But I think the characterization of Sonic they have here is really great. And it really does set up the movie franchise to just eventually become more and more and more like the games. And it all felt pretty organic, to be honest. Like, when we got to Sonic 2, you know, like, okay, Jim Carrey as Eggman is starting to look a lot more like Eggman. You know, the introduction of Tails and Knuckles feels really natural. It starts to make a lot of sense. The introduction of Shadow makes sense. So I think this movie is a lot more impressive than, you know, I gave it credit for, or a lot of other people give it credit for. I don't necessarily need to watch it again. Honestly, my favorite thing about this movie was the Sega logo at the beginning, which, to be fair, is also used in Sonic 2. But there was just something about how they did the Sega chant as like an orchestra. I really liked. But I think this movie's fine. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. You know, I think overall, like, the story is fine. I think they do a good job with Sonic's character. And, you know, if they had to make it a live-action hybrid where Sonic goes on a road trip, I think they actually did a pretty good job making this a Sonic movie and a setup to just kind of bring more of the actual Sonic franchise onto the big screen. But another big thing about this movie is the fact that it did well. It was a fairly large success, meaning a sequel was greenlit fairly early on, and Sega was able to act upon that success by advertising Team Sonic Racing. Yeah, this was the newest Sonic game that came out by the time the movie released. So, like, pretty much Team Sonic Racing released in spring of 2019, and then basically a full year later, the movie released. It was a fairly quiet time for Sonic games. There was the Sega Genesis mini console, so like there was that. And honestly, a lot of this movie's advertising really honed in on the original Genesis titles. Like, one of the taglines in the initial trailer for this movie was like, every hero has a Genesis. What? Like, bro, what? Like, from the Bible? But see, here's the problem. Sonic Team was busy working on the next mainline Sonic title, and they were looking to do something brand new. So, within about a year and a half of this movie releasing, Sega acted upon that with a re-release of Sonic Colors. Why the hell not? It launched in the fall of 2021. Took a while to get something new Sonic related out. But to be fair, this was kind of the start of a new big push for the franchise. I think it makes sense why they'd re-release Sonic Colors. For one, you know, it's only ever been on the Wii. But, you know, it's kind of lame is the fact that they call it Sonic Colors Ultimate. You know, the initial dream idea would be, oh, you have Sonic Colors on the Wii, and then maybe you also include the DS version as like a little extra, or like on a menu system, you can select the Wii version or the DS version, because the DS version is completely different, and it's also pretty damn good. So like that would have been really cool to, you know, get preserved on this new version of the game. You know, it truly would be ultimate. But no, it's just the Wii version, this release is not amazing. Of course, when this launched, there was a bunch of controversy how, people were fucking dying from some glitches. Yeah, if you have epilepsy, run. Some wacky ass glitches on this game were being recorded and put online. I never experienced anything like that. I just experienced kind of annoyance at the fact that this game did not have great performance on Nintendo Switch. Or in general across all platforms. What I'm talking about is the load times. Like, compared to the original Wii version, this version has just absurd load times. That was dumb. Graphically, yeah, it's in HD now, but to be honest, like, it kind of just looks like a pretty sloppy, half-assed, emulated upscale of Sonic Colors, especially the cutscenes. The cutscenes look like they use like AI to smooth them out and stuff. They just look lame. They just look gross. They look like something a fan would do on YouTube. And the ultimate portion of this title, like, it includes like a couple extra little like skins. They include like a Metal Sonic Rival mode, which is just garbage, and it's like the most tacked on thing imaginable. There's like a new color power up in this game that's just, it's not worth a damn. Pretty much any addition to Sonic Colors Ultimate, it's not worth a damn. Why do they call this Sonic Colors Ultimate? You should have just called it Sonic Colors. That's what you should have done. Just put it out for like 20, 30 bucks or something and just call it as is. But no, Sega has this like weird initiative with every single one of their new releases where they have to make sure you have like a digital deluxe version with added content, all this extra DLC you can add to the mix. Oh my god, pay us more money and you can get Sonic Colors Ultimate a couple days before release date. Motherfucker, this is a Wii game from 2010. I could play it prior to Sonic Colors Ultimate's release date for 11 years. Ultimate is just, it's a way to play Sonic Colors on modern platforms. It's really cool that it's, available on stuff other than Nintendo consoles. That's great. And Sonic Colors itself is a fine game. When it initially released, it was seen as like this big step for the franchise. Like, oh my god, here's a game that's just entirely quality. It's like Sonic Unleashed without the damn nighttime stages. The problem with Sonic Colors is that it's like 90% 2D. There's barely any 3D in this game, and the 3D is fun in these types of Sonic games. I love the boost formula in 3D. When it's in 2D, I hate it. Maybe hate's a strong word. It's just, it's not that fun. And Sonic Colors is mostly the boost formula in 2D. And this form of Sonic in 2D is just floaty. It doesn't feel that great to control. It's too small on screen. I'm not a fan. That's not to say Sonic Colors is bad. It's just, there's other Sonic games I'd rather play. I don't really need to go through this one again, but it is a solid time, and I think Sega wanted to re-release it because, hey, this is just an overall solid Sonic game. And thank God they had something to put out before the Sonic 2 movie released. Yeah, so they barely had any actual new Sonic games released between the first movie and the second movie. They were able to get this fucking movie out before an actual new Sonic game. Sonic 2 released in spring of 2022. And yeah, I'd say it's an improvement from the first movie when it comes to being a Sonic movie. I do think the first movie is like a better, in quotes, like movie from like a story perspective. Because this one's a bit long. It's like over 2 hours long. And when it comes to the story, like I feel like I could summarize the first one in a lot better of a way than Sonic 2. Sonic 2, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, it's just Sonic and Tails go on an adventure to get the Master Emerald. And Knuckles gets fooled by Jim Carrey. And it's pretty much like watching a video game on screen, like, oh, go to this level, this level, this level. It's a fun watch, and they do incorporate a lot more of the Sonic franchise in this movie. But this movie was just one step of Sega's giant plan to bring Sonic to new heights. And lows. Sonic Origins! Here I have Sonic Origins Plus, which released physically a year after the original release, which was digital only. This launched in June of 2022, just in time for Sonic's 30th anniversary. A year late. Yeah, Sega kept on trying to do stuff for Sonic anniversaries, but like none of it ever panned out. They're always like a year late. They announced this during like this giant Sonic live stream event where they announced Sonic Colors Ultimate, the initial trailer for Sonic Frontiers where, it wasn't even named Sonic Frontiers yet. This was all in spring of 2021. And Sonic Origins always felt like an odd thing, it kind of felt like it was kind of just an excuse to re-release Sonic 3 and Knuckles. You know, that game's consistently been in copyright trouble because of the music. You know, it was still available in like some forms, like I believe you could have still gotten Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles on like the Xbox store and on Steam for a bit. But in terms of new re-releases, it just hadn't been happening for years at that point. Like any compilation release, like the Sega Genesis Classics Collection, it wasn't in there. It wasn't in the Sega Genesis Mini. It just never released anywhere. And fans were also pretty upset by the fact that the Christian Whitehead mobile ports of Sonic 1 and 2 never made it to consoles or PC. Sonic CD's port by him made it to Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network and PC, but it wasn't on like modern platforms like PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch. So that's what this collection aimed to do. Bring those ports to modern platforms, bring Sonic 3 and Knuckles to modern platforms, put all of the Genesis-era Sonic games in one package, it's all in widescreen, have this brand new compilation for a new generation of Sonic fans. You know, back in the day when I was a kid, Sonic Mega Collection was the shit. That was a collection I had just the most fond of memories of, and I know a lot of people share the same sentiment. So I just thought it was really cool that Sega was putting time into another major Sonic compilation. My main problem was that I am so fucking sick of these games getting re-released. I'll take it, you know, I'll take an excuse to get Sonic 3 and Knuckles re-released, but like, god damn, man. Most of these games I could already play on Nintendo Switch. Sonic 1, Sonic 2, I had those already. In multiple ways. You have the Sega Ages versions of Sonic 1 and 2. Sonic 1 and 2 were in the Sega Genesis Classics Collection. Sonic 2 was on Nintendo Switch Online. But whatever, Sonic Origins released. And there was like a lot of cool bonus things about this. They have these beautiful, absolutely stunning new 2D animated cutscenes, which showed like this brand new trend that Sega had for classic Sonic titles. You know, okay, classic Sonic titles always have to have new 2D animation, you know, kind of reminiscent of Sonic CD's opening cutscene. You know, you gotta have music for the trailer done by Hyper Potions. You gotta have an amazing opening, and you work with fans to get it done, you know. So Christian Whitehead, I believe, didn't work directly on this, but I believe headcanon, or at least like a form of headcanon, worked on this release, and I know a lot of fans worked on the versions of the games present in Sonic Origins. The problem is, it's obvious that they weren't given enough time because Sonic Origins launched in a bit of a glitchy state. There's kind of like a lot of things that were a bit disappointing about this collection, but I will say this. I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it for what it was. It did feel rushed. There was like some lack of quality control in some areas. Like I remember some of the songs in like the museum in this game were mislabeled. There was kind of this weird smoothing filter on all the games where it wasn't like too awful bad, but you know, you kind of wish that the pixels and the graphics just looked sharper. And for the price they were asking for this, like just kind of having like, you know, 4 or 5 technically, I guess, if you want to count Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles as their own separate games. Sega Genesis titles, basically. Yeah, you know, it felt like a bit much, especially considering, like, we've gotten these games multiple times, and most of these games are based on mobile ports that cost, like, $1 to buy. And this game also got hit with the dumbass digital deluxe edition nonsense Sega pulls with every single one of their new releases. I mean, I like Sonic Origins. I think it's an overall good package. I think this is the best way to play the classic Sonic games on, you know, standard video game consoles. But, you know, the problem is, you know, like when you have PC as an option, you know, these little Sonic fan gremlins do wonders on that platform. And you can definitely get more fleshed out and better versions of these games. I do know there is like Sonic 3 Complete. There's also like Sonic 3 Air, like Angel Island Revisited, you know, which just kind of puts Sonic Origins to shame. But as an official release, I think Sonic Origins is good. You know, I just wish they had more than just the standard ass Sega Genesis games. We'll get to these. But for now, we have Sonic Frontiers, which released in the holiday of 2022. This game's build up to release was just nerve-wracking. It's like, what the hell do you think of this game? So, like, the original teaser, like, there wasn't anything to really go off of there. You know, they didn't give any title. You know, it was very similar to Project Sonic 2017's teaser, where, you know, they didn't give a title there either. It was kind of just like, hey, what do you think of this? Except this one was even more vague. It was just Sonic running, and then, like, he did, like, a, you know, like a little thing. The more they showed this game, the more questions arose. There were some things that looked okay, but I think there were even more things that looked very questionable. This game just looked like they just threw Sonic in, like, an Unreal Engine open world, just demo area, and, you know, Sega wasn't doing much to deny that. There was so much pop-in in all the footage that they would show. Nothing really clicked together. Nothing really made sense. This didn't look like a Sonic game. This didn't look like anything was coherently designed. It felt like they were going mad making this game. But you know what? They showed off, like, footage in, like, a Nintendo Direct partner showcase in June of 2022. And the footage there was starting to look pretty okay. Like, they showed some more Sonic Boost formula looking ass stages. And then they showed this one story trailer, which looked really good. Well, maybe not like really good, but like just more promising. And the more they'd show from Sonic Frontiers, actually like started to like, okay, things are starting to make sense. And then on release, I popped in Sonic Frontiers and I experienced, holy shit, a 7 out of 10. Sonic Frontiers is not a perfect game. It has a ton of problems, but you feel like a certain energy with this game that you just didn't feel with Sonic Forces. You know, you felt like, oh wow, they actually had like good ideas with this game. You know, hey, making modern Sonic games is really hard considering like Sonic goes so fast and, you know, you have to build an entire stage around somebody that goes that fast. So you have to create a stage that's longer than you generally would. So then you end up with like a 3-hour long game and that's not gonna work. So let's put Sonic in an open world. And yeah, I don't think everything necessarily like works entirely well in this game. It does have a lot of problems, but goddamn, does controlling Sonic feel genuinely pretty damn good in this game. Just running around is fun, and like that's something that I don't even feel in like, let's say Sonic Generations. Like I love Sonic Generations, but controlling modern Sonic, like actually trying to make pinpoint precision movements as modern Sonic in that game, it's stiff as hell. Here, like, it just feels good. The story here takes itself really seriously, and, you know, I think just Sonic taking itself seriously is both kind of funny, but also just, like, nice. Because you can laugh like it's, like, okay, like a soap opera with this fucking guy. But it exudes confidence, and it feels like Sonic Frontiers is, like, the first legitimate entry in the Sonic series in forever. Like Sonic Colors, Sonic Lost World, like they didn't give a fuck about their stories. They were just like, who gives a shit? Kids play this garbage. Sonic Generations was just a weird kind of anniversary title. Sonic Forces, who cares? Yeah, you can point and laugh at the funny Hedgehog game taking itself way too seriously, but honestly, like, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun that they make all these references to past games in this, and they try to make sense of the Sonic lore. I think it treats fans well, and after years of Sonic making fun of itself and everything, you know, I love that you're just owning up to like, hey, this is who we are. You know, we're not gonna just try and pose as like a Mario-like kind of game like they did with Sonic Lost World or Sonic Colors. Nah, here's just this fucking grungy-ass butt rock during some of the most crazy boss fights I have ever experienced. Mechanically, they're whatever, you know, like they're fun to play, but you know, it's not like, oh my god, these are some of the most meticulously designed boss fights of all time. Nah, I mean, like, I'm just mashing buttons half the time, but like, hot damn. These are some epic-ass boss fights. They include boost formula type levels in this game, as like the cyberspace stages. You know, you travel around the area and you find them, and you know, you jump in them and you collect keys, and you know, the entire game, it's just kind of like you just keep running around and collect stuff, and then you'll get a notification that says, hey, you collected enough things to go do this thing, and then you go do that thing, and then you just keep on running around and collecting more stuff. You know, like, it's a pretty basic game gameplay loop, and it is fairly mindless. You know, I don't have to think much in this game. I just run around a bunch, and eventually I get enough stuff just dicking around, and then I can go progress in the game. But the cyberspace levels are all based on previous Sonic stages, which I think is a little lame. You know, it's just like, oh my god, like why are we still reusing level assets? Not even reusing level assets, like the level designs of the cyberspace stages are lifted directly from games like Sonic Generations, Sonic Unleashed, Sonic Adventure 2. Like, it's just like, why? But hey, as little pace breakers, like, okay, I'm out of the open world and I found a cyberspace stage, so I'm gonna play this. It doesn't control great. These are probably the worst boost formula stages out of any of the games. You know, and maybe Sonic Forces is worse, but like just the fact that like they had to reuse level designs, that's pretty dumb. But they're not the main things in this game. They're kind of just like, hey, play these to kind of just get a little fresh thing to do here and there. And I could go on and on. There is a fair amount to Sonic Frontiers. Again, it's not perfect, and you can tell where, like, you know, costs were cut, or they had to kind of like rush with some things, or they couldn't go as far with something as they wanted to. A lot of elements don't really feel that thought out. Like, they have a whole skill tree in the game, and I don't think that makes any sense. The parry in this game, like, it's not even a parry. Like, a parry to me is something where, you know, you parry at the right moment. Sonic has a parry where you can just hold it down infinitely, and if an enemy attacks you, it'll parry for you. I'm like, well, that's not a parry. The puzzles in this game, I don't think qualify as puzzles. It's just hit the glowing button. That's the extent of the puzzles in Sonic Frontiers. But that's just the thing. I could keep going on. There's a lot to talk about. You know, some good, some bad, but at the end of the day, I feel something with this game. And when I walk away from this, yes, it's not perfect, but my overall feeling is like, that was fun. I enjoyed this game, and I think they were really onto something with this formula. Yes, it's kind of more of a proof of concept. It's kind of just like, hey, you know, this is what we want to do for the next Sonic game. But as a proof of concept, I think they did a good job, you know? Like, they really proved us all wrong. They really proved that, like, hey, we can take Sonic in brand new directions. You know, and hey, it instilled a lot of faith in Sonic Team for me. Like, I'm just like, damn, like, they got it. They still have their problems, but like, damn, they can still make a new, fresh take on Sonic and have it be fun and pretty good. And they introduced a bunch of free updates with this game, which was like really, really awesome. And then they did like update 3, and you know, that was abysmal, but still, hey, it was free. A couple months later, Sega introduced the Plus version of Sonic Origins, which, you know, hey, this is pretty much like what they did with Sonic Mania. This is Sonic Origins Plus. You can download the Plus editions as DLC, or you can just get the physical release. And they did the exact same thing they did with Sonic Mania. Oh, you have a slipcover, and you have, you know, an art book here that includes like a bunch of stuff. You know, that is cool. I like it, but it's also like, you know, again, like, come on, man, just make it fit in the game case. You know what's really dumb about this, though? The Plus edition is a download code. The only thing on the disc here is just the standard Sonic Origins experience. To get the Plus stuff, you gotta download it. I mean, hey, you still get a physical release, you still get stuff on the disc, but, you know, like, come on, man. But what do we get with the Plus edition? Well, we get Amy as a playable character. That is really cool. I think it is a really interesting addition to have, you know, the classic version of Amy as a playable character in these games for the very first time, you know. All the playable characters in Sonic Origins were already available via, like, Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, you know. Like, oh, you can play as Tails in Sonic 1. You can play as Knuckles in Sonic 1. You know, that's pretty cool. But Amy was never playable in any of these types of games. So, you know, it's just a brand new thing there, and yeah, she's pretty cool, but, you know, it's nothing really that new. Amy's only thing is, like, her hammer attack, which you can only do when you're in the air. You hit the jump button again, and, you know, she spins her hammer around, which is functionally pretty much the exact same thing as the Insta-Shield in Sonic 3. So, I mean, it's cool, but it doesn't really add much to the game, to be perfectly honest. Much like the Game Gear games. these things. I don't give a damn about the Game Gear games. I think this is stupid as hell. I'm just like, what are we doing here? Who wants to play any of these games? Like, we can keep dancing around this all day. Like, nobody gives a shit about Sonic Game Gear games. Let's be completely honest here. I like that they're here, but as the only edition, like, yeah, okay, 12 games. And enough to put on the box. 16 games. Oh, great. And 12 of them you're never gonna play. I think it's just kind of dumb because, like, there are better versions of a lot of the games included here. So Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic Chaos on Game Gear. Those all had Sega Master System versions, which were better in, like, every way. You didn't have the tiny-ass screen of the Game Gear. They just ran and played a lot better. But no, we get the Game Gear versions of those games. Great. In addition, we have like Sonic Spinball Game Gear, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine Game Gear. And I'm just like, why can't you just give us like the Sega Genesis versions of those games? Yes, like those games are readily available on like the Sega Genesis Classics collection. They're also on Nintendo Switch Online. But still, it's just kind of weird to have this definitive release of all of Sonic's origins. But, you know, we get, like, the worst versions of some of, some of these older titles. Like, you know, I feel like they could have done a lot to just make this a definitive package of, like, all of Sonic's adventures pre-Sonic Adventure, or the Sega Saturn, you know? But no, it's just kind of a weird thing of like, okay, we get all the major platformers and then just all the Game Gear games, but it's like most of the Game Gear games are shitty versions of Sega Master System games or Sega Genesis games or whatever. It's like, I don't give a damn about these anymore. But hey, I'm happy we got a physical release of Sonic Origins, even if it continues Sega's weird tradition of having weird, horrible spines on the PS5. Like, what the hell is this about, man? Also, what the hell is this about, man? Yeah, in June of 2023, a new Sonic game was announced. Sonic Superstars. Brand new 2D Sonic game. Kind of like the spiritual successor, the follow-up to Sonic Mania. When in reality, this is more of a follow-up to fucking Sonic 4, man. Okay, that might be a little harsh. Like, Sonic Superstars is okay. But it's obvious this didn't have the same, like, sheer love and passion oozing from it as Sonic Mania did, you know, and that's hard to do, you know. Sonic Mania was kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime experience for fans and a project for the fans developing it. Sonic Superstars felt like it was made to put out a new classic Sonic game. And it's fine. Like, it's okay. But, like, man, like, there's just so much about this game that just feels kind of just, like, lame. Graphically, we go from the pixel art of Sonic Mania to 2.5D visuals. And I think sometimes Sonic Superstars looks pretty damn good. You know, I think at its best, it looks like, you know, the 2D stages in Sonic Generations at their height. At its worst, it just looks really bland and kind of just cheap. Like, a lot of animations feel really, really stiff and lame. The music is all over the place. Like, you have some tracks by T. Lopes, who did Sonic Mania, who just nails it every single time. And you have a lot of other composers who do really good jobs, but also, like, they have multiple composers on this game. So Sonic Superstars just ends up having a soundtrack that just has, like, no cohesion. The main composer, Jun Sonoe, you know, has been a part of the Sonic series for decades upon decades and has contributed so much good stuff to the franchise. But for some reason, when he does classic Sonic stuff, he believes like, oh, I gotta use this twangy-ass Genesis-like instrumentation, and it just doesn't work. The melodies are fine, but like, the final product, like, it just sounds cheap. It's not great. This game's main selling point is like multiplayer. It doesn't work. 2D Sonic multiplayer where, like, it's supposed to be like New Super Mario Brothers. Like, no, everybody's too fast. Give up. Stop. But I will definitely say, like, this game does surprise me with, like, some of its ideas. Like, it has some genuinely fun ideas and gimmicks. Like, you know, I think this game is okay. But, like, it feels like a step back from Mania in most ways. You know, they had the Yoshi's New Island developers develop this game. That says a lot right there. But no, one of the original creators behind Sonic, Naoto Oshima, that is his company. And, you know, this is kind of like him coming back to the Sonic franchise. And you can definitely tell, you know, Naoto Oshima primarily worked on Sonic 1 and also Sonic CD. You know, this has a lot of Sonic 1 energy in it. You know, you don't have the same power-ups as you did in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. You have the return of the Sonic 1 special stages as the bonus stages in this game. And, you know, a main gimmick of this game is how the Chaos Emeralds actually give you, like, power-ups, you know, powers that you can use throughout the level. And, you know, that's a fine idea, but it doesn't really feel like they really went all in on that idea. You know, to be perfectly honest, I kind of forgot I even had a lot of those powers throughout most of the game, and not a lot of them were that necessary or that overall cool. And overall, like, everything about this game just kind of felt like a step back from Mania. Even the opening cutscene, like, you know, it's fine. It's pretty good, but it just feels a little cheaper than Sonic Mania's. And, this game's $60. Back when Sonic Forces released, Sega had this initiative where, like, all Sonic games were going to be $40 from there on out. And Sonic Frontiers was the first game to break that trend. They were like, nope, that's 60. And then they put this game out, and once again, it was 60. I'm just like, not every game needs to be 60, man. This game is not worth $60. After that, we also got Sonic Dream Team on Apple Arcade. I haven't played that, and you know I'm an Apple and I haven't played that because, like, I don't know. I don't give a damn about Apple Arcade. Maybe someday, but Sonic Dream Team does look pretty cool. You know, it's actually developed by Sega Hardlight, who did Sonic Dash and everything, and it does show, like, damn, like, these people are really talented. Like, they just created this whole new style of 3D Sonic for mobile devices, when pretty much all they've done prior to this is Sonic Dash. Like, this is really impressive. And also the fact that, like, they're bringing back a lot of stuff that we haven't seen in Sonic in so many years. You know, Cream the Rabbit is playable. Really cool stuff. There's also, like, Sonic Prime on Netflix. I never watched Sonic Prime. And we end things on Sonic X Shadow Generation. So pretty much, you know, from Sonic Generations to the re-release of Sonic Generations, it's been a pretty wild ride. A lot of ups and downs through that entire experience. You know, it's pretty crazy looking back at it all because, you know, after Sonic Generations, it felt like, oh, like, the future of Sonic felt incredibly bright, and it just felt like it made all the sense in the world what to do with the franchise after that. Apparently, no. We went through so many different styles of Sonic games, so many re-releases of Sonic games, bringing back styles of Sonic games, throwing away styles of Sonic games. And, like, Sonic Mania was kind of like how Sonic Generations was when it came out. Like, it's like, oh my god, Sonic's back! This is awesome! And then, you know, there's all this talk of, like, oh man, a Sonic Mania 2. There gotta be a Sonic Mania 2. No, they're like, no Sonic Mania 2. Here's Sonic Superstars 6 years later. And it's just okay at best. But I will definitely say, you know, after, like, Sonic Movie 1 came out or Sonic Colors Ultimate, the Sonic franchise has definitely been on the upswing in terms of just, like, consistent releases and consistently 7 out of 10 experiences. You know, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Sonic nut out there, mainly because, like, there are genuine Sonic nuts, and they're not hard to find. But I always have a lot of love for the Sonic franchise. You know, I'm always gonna stay tuned to what goes on with it next, and, you know, I love looking back at everything and just seeing just the highs and lows of everything. You know, this franchise can do incredible things and also incredibly horrendous things. But I'm never gonna stop, at the very least, paying attention to it, because no other franchise can say Sonic Boom Fire and Ice is an entry in it. Absolutely no other franchise. Seriously, fact check me on that. I dare you.